You can use any spiritual concept as a cop-out, all right? Any one of them, okay? It's possible to become a meditator, but not become free. It's possible to use the most extraordinary spiritual language to justify very violent actions. You've got to be very, very conscious about using any of this stuff. And certainly it can be misused, yes. Yes, absolutely.
Hey everyone, it's Raghu, back with Ram Dass Here and Now. And there's a wonderful talk that includes a bunch of different Q&A questions that Ram Dass. I always love these because he gives such exquisite answers and so on. So, but before we get there, just want to do a shout out for Magic Mind, that wonderful elixir that many of you have heard about over many months on Be Here Now Network. And my testimonial for it is simply, it inspires motivation and focus, right? This daily little bottle of elixir is amazing. So, and for those of you who have not tried it and want to try it, they're giving us a wonderful discount, generous discount. You go in and you use the code RAMDAS, which everyone will remember, and you go to magicmind.com/RAMDAS, and they'll take care of you. They really do take care of you, and so does their elixir. It's marvelous. All right, I want to do one other little announcement, which is, for those of you who do not know, we have now started producing and featuring Krishnamurti, one of the OGs with Ram Dass and Alan Watts. And so we are now presenting him on the Be Here Now Network. There's a couple of episodes that you can check out. And he is very different from almost anybody that I ever heard giving spiritual talks. He just cuts out the legs of all the kind of stories we tell ourselves about, quote unquote, Eastern spirituality. So I really love him, and in fact, he's got a center in Ojai, nearby where Love, Serve, Remember is domiciled. And he talks about what does it mean to end knowledge and be in the present, which is a different way of saying, how do we be here now? How do we lose that mind thing, that story we tell ourselves? And so he also talks about something that is really so relevant now. He talks about moving from fragmentation to wholeness. And I just think that is so important enough so that we at Love, Serve, Remember, Ram Dass, and all of our friends Be Here Now Network are going to be doing different events through courses and books and retreats and so on, just addressing that fragmentation, that divide, that polarization that starts inside ourselves, right? Just look at the way we talk to ourselves. It's not very nice. Look at the way we judge ourselves so harshly. We're doing that outside ourselves. So how do we clean this up? How do we harmonize is the key to what we need to do to change what's going on in our culture, in our country, and in our world in general. And I think this is something we all need to explore and address. The retreat that we're running in August, by the way, still available spots, August 15th through 19th. Check it out. Go to ramdas.org and look under events. It's about finding harmony in the divine. So this is what we want to explore and address. Both the inside and outsides of our beings, finding a way to harmony and wholeness. That's what we want to do. So Ram Dass really explores this quite wonderfully. And there's one quote that really sets it all off. He said that I experience it as I keep opening my heart and accept my part in the sea of humanity in the process of it, and start to allow that quality of compassion to come forth. I experience the feeling of coming home. Coming home is the panacea for the feeling of isolation and separation, and it's coming home into the spirit. That was all my comment, by the way. And Ram Dass goes on to say, I feel like I come home into family, I come home into place, I come home to the harmony of things. I think that the conditions are available for us to feel that feeling. I think as each individual feels it, then they become an instrument through which others feel it. I think it's a heart-to-heart process of coming home into that feeling of being at home, which is what happened with us when we followed Ram Dass back to India. Went the second time to see Maharaji Neem Karoli Baba. And here we saw and experienced, a completely harmonized being. There was no us and them. There was no inside or out. And we felt at home. So that to me is the key. But we're going to explore all this stuff coming into actually for the whole year. We're going to be doing it one way or the other. These times are really, really difficult, and we all together have to address it. So this is Ram Dass Here and Now. I'm glad to have joined you, which I do more infrequently these days. And I will see you, of course, on Mind Rolling. And please also remember that you should check out Krishnamurti. Go to BeHereNowNetwork.com and enjoy. He's quite something. This is Ram Dass Here and Now on Be Here Now Network. We'll see you next time.
Anything at all. You can raise them, and I'll be happy to work with whatever you raise. Hands. Yes. About Emmanuel. Am I doing that? Okay. There are some books out of Emmanuel who is a being that is not embodied and speaks through a woman named Pat Rodegast. And he's my spook friend. And I find him very delightful. I use him advisedly. I know probably a lot of you have prejudices. You don't think you are. You think you're very liberal, and you say, I don't have prejudice about color or race, but you demand people have bodies, which is, you say, when I talk about somebody that doesn't have a body, you say, well, I don't know about that, Well, you don't have to, because he's my friend, so, and he's great. He's got wonderful one-liners. I said to him, Emmanuel, it's fun to have somebody that died, so you can talk to them about it. I said, what'll I tell people about death? Because they're so interested in this culture. He said, Ram Dass, tell them that death is absolutely safe. That really gives a new meaning to the meaning of the word safe, doesn't it? I mean, if that's safe, then, So he said it's like taking off a tight shoe. And I just want to tell you that all beings that don't have bodies aren't necessarily wise. I mean, somebody can sort of have been really kind of uninteresting and then not very conscious and then die and then send back messages that aren't very wise. So it's good to listen to your own intuitive heart as to where you get any information as to whether it feels good. And just because somebody doesn't have a body doesn't mean they know more than you do. Just because you can't not have a body. See? You will later not have a body, and you'll be just as wise as you are now, probably. So there's the predicament. So trust your intuitive heart as to who you listen to. Questions? Yes. On Hatha Yoga and what? And eternity? Hatha Yoga and eternity. Are these two different questions or one question? Two different questions. Hatha Yoga and eternity. Wow. It's more fun to treat it as one question. There are many techniques for extricating oneself from the traps of one's identification. And there are techniques that use the mind, like Zen koans or Talmudic study, for example. There are vehicles that use the heart, like one's love of Jesus or devotional practices of that sort. There are processes that use the energy systems, like Kundalini Yoga, like Hatha Yoga, that work with putting the body in certain positions. Like, for example, this is a position. It's a prayer mudra. It's a form, and just like this is a position. And you can feel how this affects your consciousness just like this affects your consciousness. And all of these different forms are ways in which, when you do Hatha Yoga correctly, it's not just for body beautiful or toning up your body. You get into what are called asanas, or positions just like these, in which each one, when you stop, is a form of prayer. It's a form of way of using the body to go beyond the body. And these are all just different routes, different strokes for different folks, different routes through to living truth as well as you can do it. The issue of eternity. Any concept is just a concept. So the concept of eternity as well. And because eternity still has the implication of time in it. And who you are is not in time. Who you think you are is in time. And who you think you are is concerned about how long it'll last. See? And you'll think about eternity as a dimension of time. But who you are isn't in time, and so eternity is just another thought form. It's not any more relevant than that, really. So I think what you learn as you start to work with your consciousness is how to work with planes of reality and planes of time and different dimensions of time, and move in and out of those dimensions of time until you find that spacious awareness in you that is not in time, that is not born, that doesn't die, that's not coming, that's not going, it's not doing anything. It's just, see, that's not eternity. It's not nothing. It's the product of nothing training. See, when you go into nobody training, then somebody lives in time, but nobody doesn't. Only you would understand this weird language. See how we joined the shared psychosis? Questions? Yes. In terms of service, she's asking, where do we start? She used words like complacent and aggressive. Do we complacently just deal with the service, the opportunities in life around us, with family, with jobs, or do we go out to deal with service in people in more remote ways. I think that you have to listen inwardly, very quietly, to hear the unique part that you are to play. I don't think that you get a ready-made, where are you? Yeah. I don't think you get a ready-made rule of thumb for everybody. Like one person who is raising children and is there for their children is creating the opportunity for a being to participate in the world who may be very loving and open. And that may be the way that person is serving through their child. For another person, they love their child and they're working with it, but then they are also doing something for Amnesty International or for some homeless group. As you quiet down and listen, you feel more and more the way in which you are connected to all things. And as you do, out of that comes the appropriateness of your next act. The part of the mind that says, I ought to do this or I should do that, is a funny trap you got to be careful of, because you end up in the world of should. And the world of should is very harsh. It's where the mind is a little ahead of where you are. You're busy modeling how you ought to be good. They say in some traditions, out of emptiness arises compassion. And it's out of a resting in quietness that you begin to feel, oh, I must do this, or oh, this just follows from me. So it's a little bit of a timing process in where we hear what we have to do. Right? Sir? The term is a very complex term, the term karma. It certainly seems to me that most religious traditions see a quality of lawfulness that exists among all forms. And they call it by different names, but they do see that. They see the divine will, or they see the Tao, or they see whatever they'll see within they'll just see structure of form. Within that structure of all forms, everything is codependent on everything else, so you feel that it's all lawfully related. Within that structure, each form is unfolding in a lawful way. That's what we then call karma. So I would say that the only place where religious traditions differ is whether they focus where they place free will. It's interesting. Because if you as a form are part of karmic unfolding and law, then your decision, I think I'll go hear Ram Dass, which you thought was free, didn't come out of nothing. It came out of the fact that maybe you saw Be Here Now, or you saw a poster, or somebody said you come here Ram Dass, or you didn't have anything else to do tonight, or there were a whole lot of factors that led to you doing this. And if you knew enough, you would see the lawfulness of all that and realize that the statement, I think I'll go see Ram Dass, is, well, you feel it like it's free will. In fact, it isn't. Then the question is, within the laws of karma, is there free will? And the answer is that who you think you are is not free, but who you are, in fact, is free. See, and that's the wonderful paradox to play with. See, as long as you think you're somebody, you're not free. Nobody's free. It's such fun to play with this stuff. I mean, it's almost unfair it's such fun. Yes. Would I talk about alcoholism? Each of us is predisposed through some concatenation of genes, endocrine system, parents, family experiences, whatever it is, to be addicted in different ways to different things. I mean, all of us are addicted to much stuff, believe me. It might just be marmalade jam, and it might be something heavy. It might be power. That's a good one to be addicted to. It just might be addicted to being clean. That's a good one. We get caught in attachments to a form that we use in order to reduce our fears. We do it primarily as a way of alleviating the fear that we experience as separate entities. And the different addictions are differentially receptive to being modified. Some of them are very hard to modify. Some of them the culture supports so much there's not a chance of modifying them. Sometimes they're just so strong that if you hang around with a group of people who have been able to break that addiction, that'll help you, like AA for people with alcoholism. But something like AA doesn't work as well with other kinds of addictions as it does with alcoholism. And that's interesting, that there are different ways in which different addictions are dealt with. It is possible, since the label, I am an alcoholic, is a label, and any label we've started to see is just another trap of mind. So I can say, like if you're a diabetic, you say, well, I'm a diabetic, but you don't have to be a diabetic all day long. You just take your shot, and then it's like this wonderful Quaker lady was dying, and she called me in and she said, Ram Dass, I want you to help me die. I am so bored. And I said, well, you're probably bored because you're busy dying all day. Couldn't you die like 10 minutes an hour? You have to see, when somebody's dying, everybody around, oh, she's dying. Oh, how are you doing, dear? And you can't get out of it. Everybody traps you in it. So the art is to not get trapped in any definition and still honor the uniqueness. If your body needs insulin or needs to not drink because you can't work with alcohol, then you don't drink with alcohol, but you don't have to be busy being an alcoholic all the time. That's an answer to your first question. You don't have a second question? Boy, that was great. See? Sir? He's asking about the qualities. Paramitas is it's actually a Pali term originally. The qualities that one cultivates, qualities of loving kindness, qualities of compassion, qualities of, that's what you're talking about, aren't you? Sympathetic joy, qualities of equanimity. And after a while, the way I see it is, I got to tell you, just stop for a second and tell you this image. In all the years, some of you have heard this, but it's just a great image. In all the years that I was a psychologist, a therapist, I was in analysis, I worked with psychedelics, I went to other cultures, I had spiritual teachers, I've done meditation. In all the years I've done all this stuff and all the spiritual practices, I have not gotten rid of one neurosis, okay? It's important you understand this. Not one. You'd think by attrition some of them would have gone. But I haven't gotten rid of one neurosis. The thing that changed, however, is they went from being these huge monsters that took me over, like, no, and then they turn into you turn into the thing itself, like lust. Oh my God, yes. And then, won't you come up and see my holy pictures? It happens so subtly, you don't even notice it, it's so ghastly. So I went from that into where now these things are like little schmooze. And, oh, come on in, sexual perversity. I haven't seen you in weeks. Come on in, have tea. It's a place where you begin to see that your personality is your style. Your neuroses are your style. They're not your impediments. They're just the forms through which you play. And then you can start to get on with it. At that point, you stop feeding your personality so much and being busy getting rid of it and changing it and all that, because it's just like, I'm not going to grow hair. I mean, I might as well see how handsome baldness is, because that's what I got to work with. For years, I wore my hair, long and wrapped it around here and so on. And after that, at that point, then you start to focus on cultivating the qualities in yourself that are latent, or that will allow you to go through the transformation till you are in a relationship to the universe that feeds you and feeds everyone else. And at that point, you start to look for opportunities to cultivate these qualities. That's why I joined the Seva Foundation, to cultivate the quality of compassion. And I keep practicing cultivating these different qualities, like sympathetic joy, like when somebody gets something that you might have wanted. You watch your own reaction of jealousy, of all that, and then you find the place in you where you feel joyful for their joy, and you just allow that thing you play with it a little bit. And I notice the places where I'm closed, and then I work to try to open those as experiments. Like, for example, in the years past, my political predilections made it very difficult for me to deal with a man in our political scene named Caspar Weinberger, who was our Secretary of Defense. I didn't agree with his policies. I mean, poor guy. I mean, it wasn't him. It was just his policy. So I took his picture and I stuck it on my holy table with Christ and my guru and Buddha and all the family. And in the morning, I'd wake up and I'd light my incense and I'd say, "Good morning, Christ. Good morning, Buddha. Good morning, Maharaji. Good morning. Hello, Caspar." See? And then I would see how much work I have left to do yet until I could practice that quality of keeping my heart open. These are techniques of practicing these qualities, that you cultivate. Is that okay? Yes. She's asking about use of biofeedback for putting you into meditative states. What that does is, as I can see, is it changes the alpha and beta and gamma, the brain waves in your brain, which puts you into a state. Am I dealing with your question? What's the problem? Well, I'll tell you, whichever it is electrically, it is working on the brain. And the brain is really the response mechanism. It isn't the essence of who you are. That's the predicament. And to just stop thought is not the same as opening the deeper doorway. That's the tricky thing. You can repress thought so you're thinking nothing and still not be connected in that deeper way. So I think it's an interesting way to be able to see your own thought forms and to work with that, but I just don't necessarily think it's an identity with the meditation. I'm not sure it's the same thing by any means. Okay? Sir, what is the difference for somebody who takes birth in, say, Guatemala, the United States, or some other country? If I stand back to the level where I am working from looking at the fact that there are no errors in the system and that each person is living out a karma, a life that is necessary for their predicament, their karmic predicament, that it's a curriculum, that their life is a curriculum through which they can awaken optimally, then I must look at somebody who takes birth in a certain culture where it's very repressive and see that that opportunity is for that experience. And the opportunity of coming in this culture and having a kind of a queenly or kingly life of affluence is another kind of suffering, and that's for this kind of individual. And you've got to see that each individual has now that's only from the level of seeing it from the perfection. And you can't just see it from that plane. And at the human plane, it feels very unfair that somebody is born into a culture where they don't have enough to eat and they watch their friends be murdered and they are living in a repressive culture. And you do the best you can as a human to relieve that suffering, even though at the other level you understand that it is indeed karma. and that their karma involves that they were born there, but it may also involve that your heart was open to do something to help them. That's also part of the karma. Do you hear what I'm saying? That your heart is part of the lawful nature of the whole process. It's a very subtle and interesting question. Yes. I would say that she's talking about the trap of using the concept of karma to avoid what is the responsibilities or qualities of life, right? You can use any spiritual concept as a cop-out, all right? Any one of them, okay? It's possible to become a meditator, but not become free. It's possible to use the most extraordinary spiritual language to justify very violent actions. You've got to be very, very conscious about using any of this stuff. And certainly it can be misused, yes. Yes, absolutely. On the what? Can I expand on what will happen in the 1990s? Just a minute. Look, I don't know any more than you know about what's going to happen in the 90s. All I know is, as I said, if you like the 60s, you'll love the 90s. It's going to be more interesting because the changes are going to be very insistent, and colorful. And there is going to be, like President Havel said, unless there is a new kind of shared human consciousness, there isn't much hope for the system. And Einstein said, we've got everything, but we've got to change our way of thinking for it to work. And these are the things that are up for grabs at the moment. And the 90s and the whole idea of the millennium and all that precipitates stuff. Those concepts, the last decade of the millennium, all that precipitates stuff happening more quickly. And so I can feel it'll be a very fertile and alive and interesting period. Okay? Yeah. Are we going to experience a homecoming? I'll tell you, I experience that as I keep opening my heart and accept my part in the sea of humanity, in the process of it, and start to allow that quality of compassion to come forth and the kind of that quality, I experience the feeling of coming home. I feel like I come home into family. I come home into place. I come home into the harmony of things. I think that the conditions are available for us to feel that feeling. And I think as each individual feels it, then they become an instrument through which others feel it. I think it is a heart-to-heart process of coming home into that feeling of being at home. Because the statement, like I remember being in a motel on tour. I had been on tour for about 6 months. And I was in a motel, and after that, a few later, I was going to go back to a place that was my base camp, that was sort of my apartment. And I thought, I came in and I sat down in this, I don't know whether it was a Motel 6 or a Ramada Inn or something. It was a plastic place with predictable qualities to it. And I sat down and I thought, you know, only 2 more weeks and I can go home. And then I thought, isn't that a bizarre concept? Why aren't I home now? Because since I'm on the road most of the time, I'm always not being home. So I got up and I walked out of the motel door, closed the door, I walked down the corridor, and I came back and I opened the door and I yelled, I'm home. You know that feeling of I'm home? And I came in and I said, I'm home in the universe. If I'm not home now, when will I be home? And it did something to my consciousness. And I must say, I experienced that I am at home on earth. And then behind that, I experienced I am at home in the spirit. And I feel that that's a process that some of us are starting to experience. And that's why we gather here. That's part of what we're doing. So I think, yes, it is happening. Who it happens for and how many, I have no idea. I'm not counting. I don't know the numbers at all. Who are the figures that I admire? I've mentioned some of them, like Havel and Dalai Lama and people like that. I mean, obviously, I have my oldie goldies. I mean, I have Christ, and I have Buddha, and I have Ramana Maharshi, and, you know, I have the Mishpacha, the family, you know. But it's interesting because as you proceed, you realize you can't imitate somebody else's journey. And what they turn into are spiritual friends for you. But you realize you can't become a Gandhi, and you can't become a this or a that. You've got to become you. That your contribution is to be a perfect you. You're free through your own perfection. Through your own, not perfection, but through your own approaching impeccability in the way you play. And then you feel at home, and you feel, so ultimately, yeah, so you hear that. Yes. Is there something you can do to cultivate the intuitive heart? To make it happen? What you do is you practice listening to it. That's what you quiet down for, in order to hear the deeper, what the Quakers call the still small voice within, to hear the deeper place inside yourself. Now, what's going to happen to you, just happens to all of us, is that once your ego knows that you're trying to hear the intuitive heart, it'll keep saying, well, I'm the intuitive heart, see? And you will be had again and again and again and again. And all you can do when you fall on your face is get up, brush yourself off, and listen again. And you keep practicing listening to deeper and deeper parts of your being until your acts are starting to feel, that come out of that listening, are starting to feel harmonious right across the symphony of realities. And you're beginning to feel at home. Is that dealing with your question? Yeah. You had your hand up before, and I did.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, we have more humanitarianness in the 1990s. I would like to think that it is a compassionate period that is emerging. It feels right in my heart, yes. I think compassion's coming back into vogue. No. Sir? How do you deal with the seductive appeal of intensity? I'll tell you, you laugh at yourself every time you get caught. And you don't notice it when you're in it, you only notice it later. What you cultivate is a quality of witness in you that notices how you get taken each time, how you get lost into the drama each time. And then you keep cultivating, and at first, you only see it after you got caught and you're coming out of it. You don't see it in the middle of it because everything is, the adrenaline's pumping and you're right, and after all, and that sort of thing. But after a while, you get so that you see it as you're going into it. As you start to get lost into the drama, you go, here I go. You don't even know which drama you're getting lost into, you just feel a thickness. And then you just start to clear and quiet and center again. And so you just treat it, you witness it, watch it, be very compassionate with yourself, very gentle with yourself. And say, intensity took me again. Like depression. Like, I'm depressed. See, and boy, people that are depressed, they really think it's real, don't they? I mean, I'm really depressed. And they come to me and they say, I'm depressed. I say, are you completely depressed? And they said, yes, I am completely depressed. I said, all completely, yeah. Is there any part of you that is not depressed? No. The part of you that is sitting with me noticing that you're depressed, is that part depressed? No, that's just noticing depression. Aha. See? And that's maybe 1%, and the other 99% is depressed. That's the 1% you start to play with. You just keep cultivating that part of you that is the bigger context from which you see the drama.
This podcast is brought to you by the Love Serve Remember Foundation and ramdas.org. We appreciate you listening, and we appreciate all the support that you've given us. Please continue that support and donate at ramdas.org. We can then continue to share what Ramdas has been sharing for all of these years. Thank you.